Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Happy Friday to you all. so, today's topic is going to be listening to yourself. How could we listen to ourselves? Why it might be important, and how do we know when we're actually listening and not just being in silence and not doing anything? Before we start, I usually want to prompt you to think of certain things, especially how do you listen to your mind and how do you listen to your body? And whether you have certain rituals, certain, I don't know, exercises that you do to do that, and what comes up when you do that. And if you don't, why do you think you don't? Or have you ever thought that this is something you could do in order to find out all about yourself? So, the reason why I thought that it would be important to share with you is we've been discussing this with some of my clients, and some of them actually decided that this year is going to be learning all about themselves and listening to their minds and bodies regularly to find out what's actually happening so that they don't have to be surprised every time that something happens in their lives. And listening to yourself actually can help you feel that you are in charge, that you can design your life the way you want, and stop being surprised at things happening to you as if. So that's why I thought that I would share my practice of how I do it and how I suggest to some of my clients to do that, and for you also to consider. So, usually we may think that it might be actually very easy, or we know about ourselves, obviously, because we know who we are. Yet, it might be important to not only meditate that some people do, or do certain exercises, but also really listen in to what our thoughts are, what our minds are talking about, what are the topics that are happening, and what to do with them. And not only about our minds, but also about our body. What is our body telling us? What are they struggling with? What feelings are occupying us, or what feelings are driving us to do things? Because we probably think that because we are so good at finding information outside or listening to what's happening outside, it's very easy also to do that within us, but actually it might be very challenging, especially if you're not used to doing this. Then it may take some exercise or some conscious effort to do that. So I just suggest that you don't undermine it, but rather honor it, honor your own wisdom the way that you would honor other people's wisdom that you really highly respect. Right, so that's the point of it. So, the way that I define listening to yourself is how best we observe our thoughts, and how best we observe our feelings and their impact on our well-being, and not only listening to what they have to say, but also deciding what to do with them. In other words, deciding which of them to listen to and which of them to clean out or clear out, and which of them ignore even if they keep happening. Because oftentimes I think we have this feeling that if we're thinking this or if we're feeling this, then we automatically need to follow and do things the way they happen, but rather decide, even if they do happen, if they keep occurring, it doesn't mean that we need to follow if we don't want to. Right, so that's why it's important that we understand their impact, and we also decide what we want to do with it. Now, why it might be important that we listen to our inner wisdom is that first, it's simply because we may have all the answers we need within us without ever even trying to go for answers outside. And that way we can actually tweak that pattern of thinking that others may know better, or others have the answers we don't, or the pattern of I don't know, but rather saying, okay, I'm sure that I know the answers, or I have the answers. Let me just listen in to myself and find out those answers. Right? So that's a great skill to have, where we may actually have unique answers that others don't either, or we may have answers that others haven't considered in the unique way that we have. So, second one of why it might be important is that actually this listening in strengthens and balances us, strengthens in a sense of strengthens what we view and believe and bring that out to the world, rather than trying to strengthen ourselves with other methods of learning skills. But this skill actually can be a very good one to honor and put importance to what we think, and also put it out there, right? And especially relying on that strength of our inner wisdom when the external circumstances or the voices are not in line with that. So even if others might be saying something else, but if we have trust in our strength, a trust in ourselves, then we actually are likely to back up our own voice, even if the external world is not agreeing with us. And third, listening in to our voices, our inner wisdom is so important because of it becoming a self regulating compass. What I mean by it here is that we, instead of trying to fight fires, or instead of trying to fight crises in our lives that happened because we kept resisting certain emotions, we kept avoiding certain emotions, or we kept not looking at or listening into what we're actually experiencing, and we led it to a crisis level in our lives. Instead of trying to solve those crises, we are looking at all the things happening regularly on time, freshly. So we don't have to actually put out fires anymore, but rather we trust that we have dealt with all of those issues when they occurred, and we process them because we listened to ourselves and we caught them on time, so that they didn't had a chance to become so much more complicated or so much more intense feelings that we then had to resolve radically in some ways, right? So that's why this self-regulating compass can help us decide that this is a time when we need to listen and resolve this issue that is now a little, and we don't let it become big. So from that perspective, listening into yourself might be super important, and that way we actually prevent those type of bigger issues, or prevent them becoming a bigger issue. Uh, and the fourth one of the reason why it might be important to listen to ourselves is also because we then know when is a time to rest, and when is a time that we can actually go at high speed of performing or doing things that we want, rather than deciding to rest or delay rest later when we have time. We know on time that this is when it's time for me to rest, and this is the time when I will go at full speed of doing all the things I want, right? So a great way of not delaying our well-being. So that's why I hope that I was able to convince you why it's important. And the last point, maybe just to also consider, is that if we're not really able to listen to our own mind and bodies, we may also not be able to listen to others as well. And it's like with every other skill, right? So if we have mastered it ourselves, we are so good at extending it to others. And through that skill, building great relationships with others, because we know what might be going on in their models or in their thoughts, in their minds, in their bodies, and also know how best to counteract with our well balanced being while they may be in a turmoil. And that way we can still continue our relationship the way that we want, while they may have their own ways of reacting or interpreting. So that's why it's a great skill of knowing when is important to find out what we really want, what our bodies are really wanting, what our minds are really wanting, and then addressing them on time rather than keep postponing or keep resisting or keep avoiding, and then at some point it becomes something so big that we cannot ignore it anymore and we have to do something. So this brings me to the next point of how do we know that we're really listening to ourselves? So what are the indicators of it, right? So the best way that I would like to describe it is that to show you the opposite of it, to show you the opposite of when we're not listening to ourselves, because I think that's a contrast that can help you better visualize it or better understand it. Excuse me. So the contrast of not listening to yourself would be is pushing through in life with the intent of surviving and getting through and getting things done just because you want to get rid of it, or because you have to do it and you just push yourself through to doing it, like getting yourself up in the morning barely and saying to yourself, okay, I just have to survive today and then it will be okay, and then I will think about tomorrow, right? So this type of attitude of pushing through yourself in life rather than deciding how you want to spend your life and how you want to design it. The other indicator of it that's very very visual, I think many of us can relate to, it's similar to pushing through, but another version of it is living from weekend to weekend, or living from vacation to vacation, and in between surviving. Or living from here until surviving until pension time, and then when it's retirement time, then we will live, right? So these type of attitudes also show that we're not really listening into what's happening within our minds and bodies, and therefore we're just trying to get by, and then hoping that once in the future somewhere it's going to be nice. And you probably heard from many people that it may not be the case once we are there, because our minds and bodies and attitudes and all the skills that we've developed so far will also come with us to that stage. And we may still be looking for, wait a minute, where is that fun that I was all looking for? I actually thought that it will be all great when I retire, but now I have all these issues to tackle because I haven't really dealt with them on time, right? So that's the contrast of it. So I said surviving versus living, and the other part maybe of the contrast of when we're not listening is when we're pretending, when we are faking, or when we're continuously avoiding or resisting. So basically, all what I was saying above is to put it into another wording, even though I'm talking about the same thing, but I'm just showing you from different perspectives of what is it when you're not listening to your mind and body, is when you're trying to pretend that this is not happening, when you're pretending that you are honest or you are doing what you like, but you're not really, but you don't want to show that. So you're trying to pretend to show a facade of a person who has all things got together, but behind the scenes, everything is a mess. And I'm not saying that just because we listen to ourselves and to our wisdom, we're all going to be perfect and not mess anymore. I'm not saying that. But whenever we are listening to what we have and honest about it, and honestly listening and addressing all of those issues on time, we're not really having the need to pretend anymore. We can just say things the way they are and also show people how we're trying to address them and how we're addressing them and what are the successes we're having, right? So no need to be faking anymore, no need to be resisting or avoiding anymore, but rather saying this is how things are and I'm accepting it and I'm listening. So that's the difference, right? So to reverse all of that contrast, you can see that listening is basically when we know that we're not resisting, but rather listening. We're not avoiding, but rather listening. We're not afraid of those thoughts. We're not afraid of those feelings, but rather listening to what they have to say. We're simply curious. And then we are deciding which of them we want to listen to, which of them we want to clean out and ignore, or which of them we just want to keep next to us. These thoughts may keep coming, it's okay, but we don't have to listen to them, but we keep doing our things that we want to do, right? So this is how we would know that we're listening to ourselves. And the contrast of, I said, the examples above are the ones when we are not really listening, if we are surviving rather than living. So the indicators of when you achieve this is you will notice a balance of life. You will notice that there will be definitely times when you feel amazing. You have all those thoughts and ideas, creations. And then there will be times when you need to tackle challenging experiences. And you know that you can do that. And you know those challenges are there for you to grow and not because they're trying to suppress you or fail your life or whatever. So you will no longer have this radical life visions of okay, my life is amazing to my life sucks, but rather you will have this balance of okay, my life is amazing because it has the amazing parts and the challenging parts that enable me to grow, right? So it's that type of balance that you will have if you are continuously listening to your own wisdom, to your own mind, to your own body. Then you will be learning all of those messages. You will be learning how to deal with them and what to do with them. And you will just have this I don't know, trusting relationship with yourself because you've been addressing all of that on time, and you know why you are doing all of those, right? So basically listening to yourself actually helps you build that trusting relationship, with a grounded relationship with yourself. And I hope that I was able to explain it in a way that resonates with you. If you have any questions as to how the skill is really applied in your life, please do let me know. At least I tried to explain to you the way that I practice, and I hope that you will try it out and let me know how it's working. So I hope that you will have a very experimental week of listening to yourself very attentively and find out what your mind and body have to say. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful week and talk to you next Friday.